Hello everyone, Caren here, and welcome to this episode of The Passion Point. This is the show where we follow passionistas from all around the world who are following their passion, making a living, doing what they love. And today we have a special guest on. His name is John Tarnoff. He is the Reinvention career coach, speaker, and author who helps his fellow baby boomers, that's me, transition to meaningful and sustainable careers beyond traditional retirement. Fired 39% of the time in his colorful career as an LA-based film producer, studio executive, and tech entrepreneur, he currently co-runs a graduate management program for a top university. In 2012, he developed the Boomer Reinvention program to help his generation stay active, engaged, relevant, and solvent, which is so important. He is also the author of a forthcoming book called Boomer Reinvention: How to Create Your Dream Career Over 50. So if you're in that neighborhood of age, you definitely want to be watching this show today. John, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thanks, Caren. I'm great. Great to be here.
Well, we are delighted to have you here, and I'm especially delighted because I am in that range, maybe even a little bit older, and when we first chatted, we talked about some of the challenges and all those things. So I want to get into that. But before we even start with any of that, let's talk about passion, because it's a show about passion, and let's talk about the definition. Webster's dictionary says that passion is an intense driving or overmastering feeling or conviction. That's what Webster says. What does John say?
I think it's a beautiful, complex, resonant concept. You know, passion started out, if you kind of go back to the biblical definition, passion really is about pain, right? It's about the pain, the suffering that leads to the transcendence. Right. I think today we really think about passion much more in terms of enthusiasm and in terms of involvement and engagement. And that really is the way that I like to look at it, obviously, in the work that I do. And I think that the important thing for us at this age to try to remember and try to focus on is the recapturing of that passion, of that engagement, the enthusiasm that we had when we were younger, which perhaps we have lost, many of us and many of the people that I work with, having lost this through years of being beaten down through corporate careers where they were trying to go along to get along and found themselves kind of on the short end of a stick when it comes to career sustainability and viability and support.
And times they are changing. There's no question about that. They've been changing for a while, and I tend to think it's changing even faster now than even just a few years ago. And that's why we need somebody like you.
Well, thanks. I mean, yes, it is an accelerating pace of change going on, which is certainly brought on by technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even for somebody like me, a geek who loves technology, sometimes even my head explodes, and I just want to say, okay, I have to draw the line somewhere. I'm not going to learn this.
Sure. How do you prioritize? How do you make choices, right?
Exactly. And being a boomer, some of this stuff is just downright frightening. It's scary. You know, if you believe everything that you see on the internet, which, guys,
you shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
But one thing I want to say about boomers and the internet, and technology generally, is that we invented all this stuff.
Yes, we did.
This is not the invention of the digital natives. This is the invention of our generation. We're the digital founders, and I think that more of us need to remember that and to understand that this is not something that's outside of our realm of possibility. I think where we get hung up is on the fact that we really have a foot in both camps. So we have this longer perspective, right, of being able to look back to the time before all this technology. But there's nothing about this that should be intimidating or daunting for us to come.
I totally agree. But I still have my mother calling me and saying, okay, I'm sitting in front of my computer. Where's the off button?
Right.
You know.
So, I'm going to give you the counter narrative to that. My mother, who's since passed on, was a very, very avid adopter of technology, and she had a ongoing online Scrabble passion,
oh, wow,
and was playing Scrabble with people all over the world at age 89.
How cool is that? That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
2006, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. So this is all about you, John. Let's talk about your story. Let's talk about the 39% of being removed from certain things and how you ended up doing what you're doing today. Just take it back whenever you want.
So I come out of the movie business. I was a film studio executive for many, many years, and working primarily for the studios in production as an executive, as a producer. Spent about 5-10 years kind of in the technology wilderness in the 90s during the bubble. Had a startup which crashed in 2001 along with everything else. And my career really hit a wall. And even though I had been used to reinventing myself as one has to do in entertainment, and the 39% comes from the fact that over the past 35 years in my career, I spent about 2.5 years per each job on average. And of the jobs that I had, of 18 jobs, 7 of which I got fired from, so that's 39%.
Wow.
So I did this TEDx talk in 2012 and thought it would be kind of a fun idea to do the math, and it got a big laugh. So I realized that it's something that is kind of a strange statement to make, and I think what it does is it encapsulates or summarizes the idea that there's nothing really to be ashamed of being fired.
Exactly. Well, somebody listening to you say that and somebody listening to us talk about this right now probably can say, oh, okay, so the fact that I've been fired, maybe it's just the way it goes, sort of like failing your way to success.
Right.
Maybe.
Right. Well, I think you're right. And I think that we grew up at a time when you got a job and you had your job forever, pretty much.
Right.
And getting fired was something that was shameful, and you couldn't hold a job, and there was something wrong, and you must have screwed it up. But today, when you look at the pace of change, companies have to reorder, and they have to re-strategize what they're going to do to stay competitive. Mm-hmm. Staffing is a part of that. So it's really about fit. And I think the challenge for us today is to not just kind of show up because we've showed up that way and we've done the same job and we should be able to do the same job forever. We really need to think about how we can make a better contribution, provide more value, and know who we are, know what we're capable of, know what we like to do, know where we can be most useful, and then put that to work and find the fit for us.
So that's such important advice. So you hit the bubble, crashed. Where did you go next?
Went back to school. I thought, I've always been interested in psychology. Maybe this 39% thing, I need to know a little bit more about what makes me tick and how to adopt some better strategies and see where it takes me. And I really had no idea where I was going to go with this or do with this, but I went back to school to earn a master's degree in spiritual psychology. And it was a program that really changed my life in a lot of ways. And I pivoted my outlook in that program from an attitude that was really professionally oriented towards looking at content and production and why a particular story gets made. And I became much more interested in people, really, off of this experience and really what makes people tick. And this shifted me into a path towards education and training. Ironically, I got hired back into the entertainment business, which I didn't necessarily expect I would, working for DreamWorks Animation for the 2000s, but working in this education and training space, which was fantastic. And that really kind of launched me into the work that I'm doing now with Carnegie Mellon in the graduate program here in LA, and then also, of course, with the Boomer Reinvention program.
So let's talk a little bit about the Boomer Reinvention program. What exactly is that? What does it do for people? Is it a program? Is it a project? Is it a workbook? What is it?
Right. Well, it really starts with a key paradigm and a key assumption. And the key paradigm is that your career, your job is not really something on the external that you try to fit yourself into. It's something that's already inside you, and you just need to figure out what it is and figure out a way of getting it out there. And the assumption is that you're going to have to take a look at all of the baggage that you've accumulated over the last 20, 30, 40 years in your life and your career, which is something that I think is unique to our generation because we've been around as long as we have. And you're going to have to deal with it. You can't really do anything in the future unless you've reconciled the past, because the baggage is going to get in your way. The limiting beliefs that you have about who you are, what you can do, how the world works, the perceptions that the world has about you that you're not aware of, and the unpleasantness, the bridges you've burned, the mistakes you've made, the judgments that you've made against yourself throughout your career that you're hiding from. Those are things which you need to accept. So those three aspects are the first three steps of the 5-step Boomer Reinvention program, which is really the reconciliation process to get to ground zero, not ground zero, but to get back to zero or be able to start again and start with a clean slate. And then the last 2 steps really are to then what I call expressing, which is the nurturing of that career, which I believe is already inside you. And again, it's not about going for your bliss. I love Joseph Campbell, but I think the idea of follow your bliss is kind of a pipe dream. And if follow your bliss was a valuable career strategy, then every contestant on American Idol would be a zillionaire, right?
Right, and I think there's the challenge. It's the same thing with passion, following your passion.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's sort of the same thing, because just because you might be passionate about playing with your dog does not mean that it's going to create an industry for you that you can actually create the life that you want. So I understand what you're saying there.
So I think it certainly is about passion. I think, we all want to be passionate about what we're doing and believe in it. And I think that at this stage, and there's a lot of psychological data to support this and studies to support this, we crave meaning and purpose a lot more than we crave money and status as we get older. So that passion becomes very, very important for us at this stage. So we want to find that, but I think we also want to find our usefulness. So marry the passion and the usefulness, nurture that process inside you to find out what you can do. And then in the 5th and final step of the process, connect out into the world. The way the world is connecting today, not the way we connected 30, 40 years ago, to make that a reality.
Do you think it's harder for the boomer generation 50 plus to re-enter the job world when they're competing with kids? I mean,
I don't think we're competing with kids. I think I think that's not an accurate way of looking at it.
Okay.
We should be collaborating with kids.
Oh, okay.
Right. We don't want to compete for the jobs that those kids are going up for, right? Because they know different things. They have different things to bring to the table. We have different things to bring to the table. The refrain I hear a lot from people who have been fired in their 50s is, I'm being told I'm too overqualified for the jobs I'm applying for. And I say, yeah, you probably are overqualified, because you're probably trying to get a job like the one that you just lost.
Right.
You get that job. You got that job 5, 10, 15 years before that. So a hiring manager is going to want to hire you 5, 10, 15 years ago, the way you used to be, and probably you're going to be cheaper. You need to up-level your sense of who you are, what you can do, put all of the wisdom and experience to work, reformulate what that means for you and what you can contribute. You're likely a much better synthesizer of information, a leader, a strategist than you give yourself credit for. And I would urge you to think in those terms versus
yes, and
how do I compete with a 30-year-old?
And you're absolutely right. And I even don't believe what I just said in terms of the competition aspect of it. And I think that's where technology comes in, and that's where being able to collaborate with the younger generation and the older generation. I mean, there are people older than us, and there's people that are younger than us, and we're all playing in the same playground, basically, creating things. And do you think that there is a way a collaborative way? Maybe I'm trying to think, like a cloud somewhere or co-op place where people of all ages who are reinventing themselves, even at a young age. I mean, I've got a kid who is 31, actually just turned 31. He has a college degree. I mean, he's got all that. And yet he doesn't fit into that traditional 9-to-5 kind of job.
Right.
It just doesn't. And the way it is down, at least in Los Angeles, I don't know if it's like this everywhere else, employers are hiring part-time workers.
Right. Well, freelance is the future.
Yep. So what do you tell? So let's get into freelance. And I agree with you 100%. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I think we are all freelance professionals. Right. What does that mean to you, freelancing? And how does a boomer even consider that?
Well, I think freelance is actually kind of freedom in a certain way. And I think that, I'm working essentially 2 jobs, right? I'm working for Carnegie Mellon, and that's kind of my day job. And then I'm doing my coaching and writing and speaking for the boomers. That's kind of my passion job. The 2 jobs kind of intertwine in many ways. I'm working on career development with 23 to 30-year-olds, and I'm working on career development with 55 to 65-year-olds. So, there's some thematic similarities which make it really interesting, and one thing feeds the other. And I just happen to have kind of developed this through, I think, perhaps focusing on this, if I were doing my program again, this expressing part of me where I found that value set that really motivated me. So I think, again, it's not so much, again, a place for people to go on the outside where everyone's kind of going, well, what are we going to do? What are you doing? What am I doing? Yeah, networking is great. I love that. And that's how we figure out who's out there who can help us get to where we want to go.
Right.
But the core process has to be internal, right? It has to be sitting down, writing living vision statements and mission statements about where you want to go and who you are, and keeping a journal, which is the first thing I advocate for people who are in the reinvention process. So, it's that interplay between the internal vision and the external manifestation.
Oh my gosh, I'm so agreement with you. I'm such in agreement with you, especially I don't actually like networking events. I don't like the whole feel of them, because most people haven't done the internal work, and when they show up, they're showing up to sell something instead of showing up to create a relationship.
Yeah, but you got to kiss a lot of frogs, right? So
it's true.
Right, so you gotta get out there. I was talking to a colleague the other day who was talking about. A coaching colleague was talking about signing up people and frustrations they were having about this, and I said, look, you're actually converting 15% of the people that you're talking to, and they were complaining about how 85% were not signing up. I'm going, no, you're doing great, right? You need to reframe that idea and invert your perception. You're doing much better than the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. That's
so interesting. It is. It's turning our thoughts upside down, turning them on our head.
It's a classic reframe.
It is, and it's all mindset. Do you think that we have these kind of discussions, and maybe probably not, because we had 9-to-5 jobs back in the 60s? The mindset of reframing all of it? No. I mean, 2 reasons. One, I think the psychological literature wasn't really there. The behavioral literature wasn't there. And 2, we were in our 20s. I mean, come on, we were kids. We were clueless. We had other things on our minds. Right.
Now, we're older. We're wiser. We've been beaten up by the world. We've had families in many cases, and divorces, and taking care of our parents, and a lot of life experience here. So that both takes a toll, but it also delivers a tremendous amount of very golden wisdom. So we have an opportunity to have these discussions now, and to not shy away from them, but to really, I think, conquer.
I agree, and I want to talk about your book. What led to the writing of the book? Was it?
It really came out of the
program,
the talk, the TEDx talk, which really kind of launched me on this, and then realizing that I really had a lot more to say about this, and that it was time to do it. I started out writing a blog in HuffPost about boomers who had reinvented themselves, And after doing that for about a year, realized that there was a lot more to be done in this area. So it grew out of that.
So tell us the book in terms of what people can expect when they go to purchase it. You obviously, you've experienced it, you are living it, you have done all this. So are they going to get you in this book? Is this going to be a piece of you?
Well, there's a little bit of me in the book. There are 7 case studies of boomers that I reached out to interview to find out about their reinvention process. So there's a really good range of examples of people who have overcome pretty significant setbacks in their careers and their lives and have come back in really strong ways and in very surprising ways in some cases. And then, beneath the 5 steps, the overall structure of the book, there are 23 strategies spread across those 5 steps with exercises and charts and graphs and all the stuff you might want to use if you're serious about taking this on and really doing a complete 180 degree, or is it 360? I don't know, whatever the significance or the math of your reinvention needs to be.
Well, okay. So obviously, viewers, you know that you need to go click just to check this out. You're very engaging, John, and you obviously you've lived this, and this is not something that you just like. Well, maybe this is something that a boomer might want to do. You are a boomer.
Right.
So am I.
Yeah.
What do you tell? So let's say somebody stumbles into your office or anywhere and says, John, I've lost my passion. I've lost my drive. What do you tell them?
Well, I don't mean to be too glib in response, but I wouldn't say this to someone. I would really want to explore this in more detail. But I mean, basically between us, I don't believe it. I don't believe that you can lose your passion. I think that there are certainly experiences that can discourage us and kind of distress us. But I do think that as long as we're breathing, there is that opportunity and that potential for passion and for engagement. Change is tough, and I think that whether it's the external changes that we're experiencing in our culture, in the economy, or in our families, I have to tell you, I kind of wake up in the morning and I look around and I go, first world problems, right? I've got a great life, but I think is this what, being 64 is all about? I don't think any of us really were prepared for any of this. And I don't think any generation was prepared for any of it. We just happen to be talking about it more because
social media and
the culture and the generation, and we're boomers, and we have this idea about who we are, and so we're going to talk about it, we're going to conquer it, we're going to do it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I often have thoughts of, if I only knew then what I know now and was willing to listen to my parents, who things would be different. But I guess that's part of the process. I think
that's always been part of the process, right? Generation to generation. I do think that consciousness is shifting on the planet. It sounds like a woo statement, but
I agree.
I think there's a lot of evidence that consciousness is shifting, and that we have, a lot of the conflicts that we have, and the breadth of the conflicts that we have, philosophical conflicts that we have on the planet today, are because of this change in consciousness that's going on. So, we're the generation really stuck in the middle of that change, and people talking about the reinvention process, and is this just for boomers? And I say, well, it's for boomers now, and it's for boomers because we're going through it, but this is something which every generation that's on the planet today and coming up behind us is going to face.
Exactly. That is so true. I have a quote that I really, really like, and I want to share it with you. Oprah Winfrey said it. It's, passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you. Yes? No? What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But again, I want to add the usefulness part of it. And this was a key that I heard in a commencement speech that was given last year by a guy named Ben Horowitz, who's a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. And he came out of Columbia Engineering School and gave the commencement address. And he's the guy where I stole this idea about, if you're an American Idol contestant, and you're following your bliss. I mean, he's the guy who talks about usefulness, and I think that's a real key, and it applies across all generations, because the millennials have this bad rap that they are entitled, and they want things to work the way they want to work it, and they want to come to shoes to work in sandals. And sure, I mean, there's a lot of that out there, but I also think that millennials are very passionate about making a difference in the world. In a way, I think they are kind of picking up where we left off as a generation from their values. So, this question of usefulness and how do you apply the skills that you have, the interests that you have, the abilities you have is key.
Yeah. Do you have a quote that you like?
I have a collection of quotes that I like. I really wasn't prepared with one specific quote today, but I will say, well, I guess this is a good one that applies to boomers, and that is, if you're doing it the way you've always done it, it's probably wrong.
I like that.
Comes from a guy who was, and I'm going to just really embarrass myself by not remembering his name at the moment. I'm having, I guess, what we would tend to call a senior moment, but I reject that term, because when you have as much important information stuffed into your brain as we all do at this age, it makes sense that our random access memory retrieval system would take some time to retrieve it.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do, John. I'm gonna Google that quote after we get off the show, and I will attribute it to whomever actually.
Yes, there you go.
There I go. Okay, I have a question for you, and we're going to wind down. If you could spread passion dust on anyone in the world, and have it do whatever you want it to do, who would you spread it on, and what would you hope to accomplish?
Oh God, who would I spread passion dust on? You mean someone who's not already impassioned? Who needs to wake up? Oh my God, that's a really tough. That's a really tough question. Does it have to be an individual? Can it be a certain?
It can be a group. It can be the boomers.
Well, I mean, that's where I was kind of going. I was saying, it has to be the boomers. It has to be any boomer who feels discouraged about and scared about what their future is in their 50s, because, we have a good chunk of time left. I think the stats are that 25% of us are going to live to 90. And that's pretty crazy statistic. So we need to make the most of it, and we're not going to make the most of it by trying to just kind of pinch our pennies and hibernate and cocoon back into what meager Social Security savings and retirement savings we have. We really have the duty, I think, and the responsibility and the ability to make a big difference still on the planet, and that is by engaging across generations. I think the passion for me would be to say, don't be ageist or reverse ageist against younger generations. There's enough division going on in the world. We need to
come together. Definitely have to come together. Any last thoughts? We've already told them about the book. Is there somewhere we can send them to check out?
Sure. Just my website is johntarnoff.com, and that's the easiest place to find me. And you can also find me on Twitter, and you can follow the Boomer Reinvention page on Facebook. And
awesome.
That's a good place to start.
Awesome. And if somebody wants to reach out to you and work with you, they are a boomer, can they get in touch with you through your website?
Yes, absolutely. There's a contact form right on that page.
Awesome. I want to thank you for taking time today with us. It's fascinating, I think maybe because I'm in that age range in particular, but also because you're doing important work. This is important work. And I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank our viewers. We know you have a choice as to how to spend your time. And I want to thank you for spending your time with John and I today. So I will see you next time on the next episode of The Passion Point. Goodbye, everyone.